Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Vicki Wynn in for Joe today.
And I'm Susan Soch. We're so happy that you're here and you all are starting your day with us. Thanks for being here. We're going to begin our show with some breaking news out of the Middle East. A new exchange of attacks between Iran and the United States is putting the region back on edge. That's after President Trump, now back in Washington, told reporters at the NATO summit in Turkey that the ceasefire between both countries is over.
Overnight, U.S. Central Command said it carried out dozens of strikes hitting multiple cities on Iran's southern coast. CENTCOM says the strikes are to, quote, degrade their ability to threaten freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this eyewitness footage, verified by NBC News, shows explosions in one of those Iranian coastal cities. Iran's health ministry says at least 14 people were killed. Dozens more were injured in those attacks. In response, Tehran said it launched attacks on U.S. bases in the Gulf. Now, hopes for any kind of peace deal are in major doubt after President Trump told a news conference at the NATO summit, quote, let's just finish the job. NBC News Washington correspondent Alice Barr joins us now with the very latest. Good morning, Alice.
Good morning, Vicki and Savannah. President Trump is insisting that Iran still wants to make a deal for long-term peace, even as the two sides fired at each other for a second night in a row. The president is also ramping up his rhetoric, saying he doesn't know if he can trust that Iran will stick to an agreement.
Not enough, right?
President Trump is back in Washington from the NATO summit in Turkey, flying at the same time the U.S. military launched a new round of strikes against Iran, hitting roughly 90 military targets, according to U.S. Central Command.
We just hit them very hard, and I say we hit them 20-1 every time they hit us.
Iran says it fired back against 4 U.S. bases in Bahrain and Kuwait. The Pentagon has not confirmed that or any damage. The second night in a row of strikes exchanged comes after President Trump declared Wednesday the ceasefire with Iran is over.
To me, I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them anymore, with this scum.
The flare-up started when Iran struck 3 commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz earlier this week, despite promising to allow traffic to flow as part of the preliminary peace deal. That deal is now in question.
They called a little while ago. They want to make a deal so badly. I just don't know if they're worthy of making a deal. I don't know that they're going to honor the deal.
Oil prices are surging as President Trump threatened to reimpose the U.S. naval blockade on Iranian ships, while Iran's lead negotiator said the Strait of Hormuz will only be open under Iranian management. The president, though, said he does not expect a return to full-scale war.
I don't think it's going to start again. I think it's going to go very quickly.
That as he shifted course on another war while at the NATO summit, granting the president of Ukraine's request for a license to build its own Patriot missile defense systems to ward off increasing Russian attacks. Another note here, President Trump left Turkey on the old Air Force One before changing to the new one that was gifted by Qatar at a stop in England. The president said that the swap had nothing to do with security, but a source familiar with the president's plans told NBC News it was a security move out of an abundance of caution as they were taking off from Turkey, a country that borders Iran. Savannah and Vicki.
All right, Alice, we appreciate it. Thank you. Do you have more on the security concerns that this last-minute swap out of the planes?
Yeah, so the White House communications director said the new Air Force One is state-of-the-art, fitted with high-level security protocols. And he said, quote, we use every tool at our disposal, including distraction and misdirection, to address threats. A senior White House official said they can't speak to any specific threats, but President Trump himself said yesterday that the life of being a president is dangerous and that he is #1 on Iran's kill list.
Yeah, those security concerns, very important. All right, Alice, thank you so much.
Let's bring in NBC News military analyst Colonel Steve Warren. Colonel, good morning. Thanks as always. Help us understand the scale and scope of this latest U.S. attack on Iran. What was targeted and how big of an escalation is this?
Yeah, very important question, Savannah. Thanks for having me. This so far, what I'm calling the Battle of the Straits, the Battle of the Strait of Hormuz, is not yet full-scale war. Central Command, which is in charge of these operations, has said yesterday they struck about 90 targets, the day before about 80 targets. And this is significantly less than the several hundred targets CENTCOM was striking at the beginning of this operation. Additionally, the strikes have been focused really on things that Iran owns that can influence the Strait. So areas near the shoreline, drone sites, missile sites, radar sites, etc. So this really is a battle for the Strait of Hormuz, and so far it's stayed contained that way. We'll have to see if that remains.
Colonel, Iran is saying that it responded. It targeted U.S. bases in the Gulf. How strong are Iran's military capabilities right now, given that the Pentagon says they were very much degraded earlier in this war, weeks ago? Has Iran been able to cause much damage to these bases with the artillery they have left?
Yeah, certainly they have expanded. The Iranians have expanded their responses. Earlier, it was only Kuwait. Now we've got other nations allied to the United States involved in receiving these responses. You know, the Iranians have had several weeks now to rebuild some of their capabilities. We've seen various reports on the capabilities of their ballistic missiles. Some estimates are that 80% of their missiles have been destroyed. Others are that only about 30% of those missiles have been destroyed. So we're not certain how much capability the Iranians still have under their control, but we do know two things. Number one, they've had time to resupply and rebuild. And number two, clearly, they still have some capability left because they're using it right now.
Let's talk about where things might go from here. Could we return to a state of full-blown war, do you think? And does the U.S. have the capacity to do that?
Well, the United States certainly has the capacity to do it. Now, we haven't seen the large surge of capabilities of additional ships, additional aircraft, additional bombers move into the region yet that we saw back in February before this whole thing kicked off. So we don't have quite the amount of combat power in the region today that we had back in February and March. That said, the United States certainly has that capability other places in the world and can begin moving it into the Middle East really at any time. In addition, the capabilities that we do have in the Middle East, Savannah, they're significant. So we can continue to press the Iranians, we continue to pressure the Iranians, and we can continue to do damage to the Iranians even with what we still have left in the area.
Colonel, despite this escalation, we've been hearing the president talk about how negotiations could still happen. How do you get to the negotiating table with this backdrop?
Yeah, so it's tough. I think in this case, history might be an important lesson. You know, if you look back to the Vietnam War, the Korean War, even as far back as World War II, you do see that negotiations and combat can and historically have happened at the same time. Now, in this case, you know, the Iranians have been very difficult to deal with. And I think it's important to remember that up until now, every single violation of this ceasefire that has now, frankly, unraveled, every violation was initiated by the Iranians. They are difficult negotiating, partners, if you will. They don't keep their word. So they are very difficult to negotiate with. Now, having said all that, there is historical precedent for nations to fight and talk at the same time. And that's, of course, what we're all looking for now.
All right. Colonel Warren, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, these renewed fears of an escalating war in Iran, they're now leading to higher oil prices and sinking stocks. This morning, gas prices are once again on the rise after the international benchmark for crude oil jumped to $78 at the end of yesterday's close. That is about a 5% jump and its highest point in 2 weeks.
Meanwhile, there was a sharp reaction on Wall Street with the S&P 500 and Dow Industrial Average both taking a dive at close.
For more on this, we are joined by editor-in-chief of Investopedia and the chief business editor of People Inc., Caleb Silver. Caleb, good morning. Thank you so much for being here with us. So let's start with these oil prices now hitting this high price. I mean, it's not $100 like we saw at the beginning of the war, but that's the biggest single-day spike we have seen since June, right? So how concerned should Americans be about the prices that we're going to pay at the pump?
Yeah, well, there's a direct correlation there between higher oil prices and the uncertainty in the Gulf and Iran and the stock market, because it means slower growth. If we're going to have higher oil prices and higher gas prices, that means slower spending by businesses, slower spending by consumers who already feel terrible about the economy. And that translates into a big hit for the stock market. Things bouncing back a little today, but there's this unpredictability. And I think that's what gets into investors and consumers' heads. They don't know what prices are going to be, so they stop spending, they put their hands in their pockets, and That's what we saw yesterday. We'll see if that continues.
So we're seeing stocks pull back while these oil prices move higher. What does that tell us about the market and what investors are most worried about?
They're worried about the unpredictability. Again, how much is gas going to cost? And because of that, they're seizing their spending on things like travel, discretionary spending. That's where you see it first. But we're already hearing results from companies who are just starting to report last quarter results saying consumers are pulling back. We heard it from Pepsi this morning. We're going to hear it from other companies. Airlines are going to start reporting this Friday. That's what they're worried about. What does this translate to at the end of the day?
Yeah, speaking of the airlines, we see these stocks taking a hit. Industries like travel, consumer-related goods are going down. Also, consumer spending retracting. Does it say anything about the broader economy at this moment? And this is supposed to be a very busy season for travel.
Yeah, this is the travel season. We have World Cup happening throughout the country here. We have people that are traveling from city to see that. Lots of concerts going on. We have actually seen, and we saw it in the jobs report, a slowdown in hiring in leisure and hospitality. You wouldn't expect that on a summer like the one we're having right now, but we're starting to see that more and more. And if that continues, that'll eventually lead into lower stock prices, lower growth for the economy overall, which could affect the jobs market.
If these tensions overseas continue to escalate, what is it that Americans should really be keeping an eye on and maybe be most concerned about when it comes to their money?
Yeah, it's going to be slower growth. And slower growth means less hiring. Slower growth means less spending. All of that translates into a lower stock market, but potentially stagflation, which is something we don't want to see. But I'm looking out at oil prices towards the end of this year because they always trade in the future. Traders think oil prices are going to continue to go down. So if you're looking at the October or December contracts, $72 a barrel. That doesn't mean gas prices are going to go to where they were last year, $3.15. That means they're going to be slightly lower if things calm down. But that's a big if. There's so much unpredictability here, and things seem to change by an hourly basis. Hard for investors and consumers to make plans with that happening.
All right, Caleb Silver, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
President Trump is filing another appeal after a federal judge ruled that E. Jean Carroll should be paid the more than $5 million awarded to her 3 years ago.
Yesterday, U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan ordered that Carroll should immediately receive the money after the Supreme Court refused to hear the president's last appeal. The judgment was initially awarded in 2023 when a jury found President Trump sexually abused Carroll back in 1996 and then later defamed her when he denied the allegations.
For more on this, we want to bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalas. Danny, good morning. Good to see you. So do we know when this money is supposed to be paid out? And why did the judge order that it also be paid with interest at this point? That actually adds an additional $800,000 to the original $5 million.
That's right. First, when the order says essentially pay it, and that really means forthwith. In a regular run-of-the-mill case, that might mean whenever the clerk gets around to it. In a case of this kind of import, it will probably happen relatively quickly. An order from a federal judge is something that you generally pay attention to and promptly. Now, as to the interest, that's provided for by law in federal court, and it's designed to protect people from someone saying, hey, I want to appeal, but hey, at the end of the appeal, I've spent all my money. So that interest runs from the time of judgment. It's standard and provided by law. In the case of an amount like this much, after 5 years, it's a considerable amount.
Danny, the president's legal team filed another appeal just minutes after this judge's order. So is there a real shot of blocking the payment, or is it a stall tactic?
For the most part, it is trying absolutely everything you can. After all, the Trump team's argument is that they agreed years ago that this money would be paid if the Supreme Court denied what's called cert, denied hearing the case. And so the Supreme Court has done that. But the Trump team's arguing, well, yeah, we've asked them to rehear it. So technically, they might go back on what they already dismissed and declined to hear. It's a near zero probability. But as they say in the movies, so you're saying there's a chance. And that's what the Trump team is saying. So very small chance. Their best argument is that, hey, Judge, there's really no harm. Carroll says she's going to give this money away. If we give it to her now, it'll disappear into the wind. So just hold on to it for a couple more months. Nobody will be harmed.
Well, speaking of is there a chance, President Trump is also appealing a separate $83 million defamation judgment that was granted to Carroll by a different Manhattan jury back in 2024. That payment also being held up at this point?
Yes, it's technically a stage behind in the appeals process. But you can expect that the Trump team will take this, if they can, to the Supreme Court. And if the court denies it, then they'll be stuck at the lower appellate court. So the reason this is so significant is that second case really raises the issue of the presidential immunity. In other words, Trump is arguing that when they use statements, the plaintiff used his statements made as a president, that went against the Supreme Court's ruling that something a president says in his official capacity, it can't even be used as evidence. So that is a major issue in that appeal, and it could affect this earlier case for the $5 million. But obviously, the $83 million case is significantly more and of greater dollar import.
All right, Danny Savalas, we appreciate your insight, as always.
We have big news, out of Maine this morning with Graham Platner, the embattled Democratic Senate nominee, suspending his campaign overnight.
Yeah, this announcement comes in the wake of a sexual assault accusation against him, which he denies.
For more, let's bring in NBC News politics reporter Megan Brand, who joins us now with the latest. Megan, good morning. What did Platner say when he made the announcement last night?
Hey guys, good morning. Yeah, the key part in that 11-minute video was Platner's announcement that he was going to file paperwork to officially withdraw from the campaign. So in that video, he vigorously denied the allegations that were made against him, but argued that it wasn't the allegations, but rather, in his view, it was the political establishment putting structural pressure on him that ultimately led him to that moment. Take a listen to what else he had to say.
I know that some will think it's an admission of guilt, and it most certainly is not. We're not doing it because of the allegations. We're doing it because of the structures that are being taken away from us by those in power.
So as you heard there, he criticized those in power. He had gone on to argue that those in power were using the allegations as an excuse to take away things that he needed to operate a campaign, things like fundraising, things like access to voter information. He also, in that video, addressed what comes next, arguing that in terms of who replaces him, that there had to be a process that was open, transparent, and democratic, going on to say that that the decisions should not be made in back rooms by people in places of political power, guys.
Megan, what about the allegations themselves? Did Platner address the rape allegation in this video or say that he plans to fight it?
So he addressed the allegations broadly, saying that they were false. He actually started the video by addressing that broadly, saying that this is all false. The things that have been claimed did not happen. He said it's not real. He also criticized the process and the timing for this, saying that he had learned about this through media inquiries, actually. And he also argued that he had no time to truly respond before, in his words, he argued that there was no time for investigations before a corporate media system and the political establishment got to act as judge, jury, and executioner. He also pointed to the timing of this, saying that this was the last week that this could happen before he would be officially on the ballot. So arguing that there was timing that factored into this as well. Remember, he had until Monday at 5 p.m. in order to withdraw, if he was going to withdraw, and that ultimately then would give the Maine Democratic Party the opportunity to replace him moving forward.
So what happens from here? Do Democrats have anyone who is set to run against the incumbent Republican, Susan Collins?
Yeah, so there are several names, some people who have already thrown their hat into the ring, some people who have said that they are potentially interested in running. So I'll go through a couple of those names. Now you have Troy Jackson. He is the former Maine State Senate president. He also had previously run for the Maine Democratic primary for the governor's seat, and he had lost that. He had gotten the endorsement in that race from Senator Bernie Sanders. He had announced in a post to X that he's running to replace Platner. You also have Nirav Shah. He had also ran in that race for the Democratic primary for governor. He had also lost that as well. And he's the former director of Maine's Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Now, he hasn't officially jumped into this race yet, but in a statement before Platner had announced that he was not going to be running anymore, he had said that he was evaluating whether to run. You also have Dan Kleban. He's the founder of Maine Beer Company, and he had announced in a Substack post that he was interested in running. But one person, guys, who you are not going to see on the ballot is going to be Grey's Anatomy star Patrick Dempsey. He had been floated as a potential candidate, but he announced in an op-ed yesterday that he had decided not to run, guys.
Oh, all right. Megan Brand, by the way, our viewers may recognize a new last name there. Congratulations, Megan.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us.
Well, we have some sad news to share this morning. Legendary Welsh singer Bonnie Tyler has died at the age of 75. In a statement posted to her official website, her family said they are heartbroken to announce that Bonnie unexpectedly passed away last night in a hospital in Portugal as a result of the illness that she was being treated for. They asked for privacy as they grieve. Best known for her iconic hits Total Eclipse of the Heart, It's a Heartache, and Holding Out for a Hero, Tyler's powerful voice helped define pop music in the late 1970s and 80s. Her career spanned more than 5 decades, leaving an enduring musical legacy.
Well, now let's get you a check on your morning news now weather. That extreme weather that has been sweeping across the country, it is expected to continue through the weekend, like here in the Northeast, where another round of strong storms are expected to bring more flash flooding to the rain-soaked region.
Or down south and out west, where the heat and high humidity are teaming up, making it feel like triple digits. Meteorologist Angie Lastman is tracking all of it for us. Angie, good morning.
Hey there, guys. We've got some trouble spots across the country today as we gear up for a busy travel day. Notice Philadelphia, D.C., Detroit, Chicago, Denver, all dealing with the potential for some likely delays at the airports. We've got those scattered showers and thunderstorms across parts of the Midwest and the South, and the East Coast will see some of those stronger storms as well. So heads up if you're traveling, hitting the roads, or headed to the airports this morning. Here's what we've got so far. Some of these showers kind of working across parts of Michigan. We've got some thunderstorms across parts of the plains, and then we've already got some of these flood alerts up for 25 million people. You can see Nashville included in that, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia as well. This is going to be something that we see through the rest of the morning hours and into the afternoon for the potential for some flooding and some strong storms. There's the look at the strong storms today. Your severe threat includes 19 million people up and down the plains and out towards the Ohio River Valley. This is going to leave us with the greatest potential for some wind gusts and some hail, but of course the tornado risk on the low end, that is always a good news, something to watch for even into the evening hours tonight. On top of that, there's the flash flooding concerns. We've got anywhere from 1 inch to 3 inches of hourly rainfall rates possible here as the day goes on. So heads up if you live in Chicago, Indianapolis, and out towards the East Coast as we gear up for multiple additional inches of rain. We've got the potential to see localized amounts up to 5 inches here as we get through at least the next day or so. 53 million people, meanwhile, are under heat alerts. Much of that is across the west. We've got some including parts of the southern plains and then the southeast, including Wilmington, all the way down to Miami as we gear up for another really steamy kind of day. Temperatures back to the triple digits in a lot of spots. It's Phoenix at 113 degrees. It's Oklahoma City at 101. We'll feel like 105 in Austin this afternoon. And even the southeast, you're into the 90s, but feeling like those triple digits for the extended period. Not just today, but into tomorrow too. Mobile, 104 for what it feels like, 97 for what it feels like in Washington, D.C. This heat is locked in with us even as we get to the end of our work week and into our upcoming weekend.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.